Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to introduce myself and the members of the panel, and there's just a couple of things I'll explain to you. So firstly, thank you very much for coming out this evening and giving us your time. Very grateful for that. My name is Sonia Petering. I'm one of the panel members that have been put onto the Hazelwood Mine Fire Inquiry, and we have two Auslan interpreters here this evening because there is need for that in the audience, so they'll be signing away. We've got a number of other people too. So just to explain, I'm a country lawyer. I grew up in the Wimmera, in a little place called Minyip, so very small regional community. Did law, and I'm now a lawyer in Geelong, and I've also got some company experience in relation to TAC, so I'm a director of that, and I chair a company called Rural Finance Corporation. I'm also to be grateful for the panel experience that we have. So Bernard Teague, who is known, no doubt, to many of you, his role in the Royal Commission to Bushfires, and Professor John Catford. So I have two very esteemed gentlemen who will help with the inquiry. We've also got a team of people, and I'm going to ask those people to stand up. So we've got Tracy here, who is handling some of the media inquiries. So if you've got any queries about media, then please come and see Tracy. We've also got Lana, who's right out the back there, and she's waving to us. So if you've got any queries about submissions or anything to do with some of the paperwork, please see Lana. And Elizabeth, is she? Yep. So Elizabeth here is she heads up the secretariat, and she is in relation to some of the administration to help the inquiry with their work. Brooke is also here, so she's another person that you could speak to or ask questions about. And Joe is also here. So Joe's helping to take some notes tonight on various tables. Tonight is a facilitated process, and we're going to have the expertise of Chris, who's going to direct us through answering some of the questions. And so Chris will explain the process we're going to be going through, and we'll get you out on time to make sure that we have the best use of the time available to us. Fran asked me when I was chatting to you beforehand, what are we trying to achieve tonight? And I think that's a very good question, Fran. Thank you for that. And I think what we're trying to achieve is that the panel members are listening, as are the rest of the team on the inquiry, to what some of the issues in the community that we need to perhaps investigate further. So we don't have the answers. I think, John, you asked me, do we have the answers? And John's got quite a few questions that he'd like to put. And so what we'd like to hear is what some of those questions are and what some of the issues. So it's a great opportunity for us to hear directly from you, the people who have been affected by the mine fires or fire, what some of the issues are. So please feel free to speak to the inquiry members and participate in tonight's process. And Chris will also explain about the process of lodging submissions. On your table there is a submission form cover sheet. So if you have additional things to say or would like to put something in writing, please do so. The board will read through all of those submissions, so we encourage you to submit those to the inquiry either electronically or by post prior to the 12th of May. So welcome, and we are here to listen, and we're here to listen to what some of those concerns are, so please make your voice heard. Otherwise, without any further ado, as they say, I'm going to pass you over to Chris, who will explain the proceedings tonight. So again, from the inquiry, thank you for being here.
Thank you. So can I add my welcome to the one that you've just heard from Sonia. I'm Chris Cotter. I have worked in this region quite a lot. I've particularly worked with the Gippsland Community Leadership Program, and there are a couple of people who are here tonight because of their association with that group and the work that I've done with them before. I also know some of you through working with your kids and some of the teachers in this particular region. So I'm very pleased to be back here, and I wish it wasn't under stressful circumstances, but I think this is such an important part of Victoria, and I know that the inquiry can't do its best work without you. So I'm very grateful that you're here tonight and that you've given us your time. This is our 5th meeting. We've been to Moe and Churchill, and I have been struck in the meetings that I've facilitated by people's generosity and openness and frankness in letting us know their thoughts and ideas and their experiences. And that's really going to be able to shape the work of this inquiry. So I'm grateful to you before we even get going. So thank you very much for making the time to be here tonight. Can I draw your attention to some documents that you have on the table before we get going? You've got a couple of things. One is the terms of reference for the inquiry. Now, we've got spare copies of all of these documents because if there are people who couldn't come here tonight, if I just hold them up so that people who are not sure, may I do that? Just excuse me. So the terms of reference, these are all for you to take, and if you know of people who couldn't come tonight and wanted to, please make sure that you take some copies away tonight for other people. So that's one thing. I hope everybody takes one of these small cards, if you like, because on this you have got the contact details for how to stay in touch with the inquiry. Its website, its contact details. And what's really important is that between now and May the 12th, the inquiry would really appreciate getting your submissions. So tonight we've got on the table, and we do have spare copies of the submission cover sheets that we'd like you to fill in if you're putting in a submission, because it lets us track each one of those documents. And again, if you know people who are not here tonight but you know that they'd like to put in a submission, please take those documents away. So this one's for you to take and stay in touch. The date, the important date, is the 12th of May. It's just on a month to get submissions through to the inquiry. And what we often find out is that after a session like tonight, people hear new ideas, new experiences. It jogs their memory. They think of fresh things to say. So all of those changes or new submissions are very welcome. So what I'd like to suggest is that we pick up the way we have in all of these other sessions. And we've pretty much asked people to talk to us about 3 areas. And those 3 areas have taken us right into the heart of the terms of reference, but they've also given people a real chance to talk about their experience and contribute their issues and ideas to the inquiry. Now, if those 3 questions, and they're on your table, don't pick up the things that you've come to talk about tonight, I'll open it up at the other end to make sure that whatever you've come along to let us know about tonight, we can actually capture. So what we've been talking to people about are 3 things. Basically, the first one is, so what worked well? What worked pretty well in the lead up to the fire? What did you think you've appreciated, or that you thought went as well as you might have expected? Then the next question is, what didn't work? What didn't work well? What didn't work quite as well as you might have hoped or anticipated or expected? Now we're collecting up all of those issues. And the third question you'll see on that sheet is something to do with your sense of, if this were to happen again, heaven forbid, if this were to happen again, what needs to change? What can we learn? What needs to happen from here on in? And now at this point of your experience, what do you think you need? What needs to be supported? What needs to be perhaps monitored? So that last question's asking you to think about from now and into the future, and giving the inquiry advice and suggestions and ideas about that. So what we've done in these sessions is to basically say, see if you can find one person at your table who would be prepared to be your spokesperson. And after about 30 minutes or thereabouts, and I'll come around and see how you're going, I'd like that spokesperson to be able to take the microphone, and we're going to use a microphone because we're recording all of this information in a room with this many people. There'll be lots of things said, and we want to make sure that we can capture as many of those as possible. So the spokesperson's job is to collect the issues from around the table around those 3 questions. What worked well? What didn't work quite so well? And what about the future? And at each table you also have a scribe. Can I just ask the scribes to put their hand up so that you know who the person is at your table who will be your note taker? Now that person, thank you. That person's job is to take down as many of the issues as they can. And at the end of the session, we'll have recorded this. And I should say to you that these cameras here behind me are for the inquiry only. We want no photographs taken during the session. People are very sensitive about that, so no cameras. You might actually turn off some of those mobile phones if you think somebody's going to try to get in touch during the evening. But so the only cameras here are for the inquiry, not for the media. So we've got scribes. At the end of the session, I'll come around, pick up from each of the spokespeople. You'll see that we'll record all of that. We'll take notes. You'll see those recorded behind me. So we've got lots of ways of making sure that we capture as much information as we possibly can tonight. And remember that tonight is only one opportunity for you to have an input into the inquiry, because those submissions, those other opportunities to talk to the inquiry through your submissions is really important, and there's nearly a month for you to be able to do that. So I'd like to suggest that the first thing that you do is to find that one person at your table who will be your spokesperson. See if we can ensure that everybody around the table gets a chance to be heard, to say what they think. We really value open and frank conversations. There is nothing that you need to feel that you can't say in this room. It's really, really important that we hear that from you. I'll give you about 30 minutes or so. I'll give you the occasional time call to see how you're going, and then I'd like to come around and just see if I can collect from you as much of that information as possible so that we can build a picture for the inquiry to take away at the end of tonight. So are there any questions that you have about the first 30, 35 minutes or so about this process? A spokesperson, 3 questions to work through, whatever order that you like. And at the end, if those 3 questions haven't covered what you've come to talk to us about, I'll open it up and we'll collect it that way.
I've got to introduce the nurse. So you might.
Oh, okay. Where's our nurse? Thank you. Just in case you're feeling, you probably know most of the people in this room. Okay. So if you're feeling like you need some assistance, please let one of us know, and we'll make sure that we find our way across. Are there any questions about the first 30, 35 minutes or so? Spokesperson, 3 questions, and then I'll come round and get a report from you. Okay, it's over to you. So let's see where we've got to. What I'd like to do is to go through question by question, and at the moment just talk to the spokespeople. We've got a lot of people around the room, so we'll use those to collect up the issues around the table. So what I'd like to say to spokespeople is, if you've already heard your issues come up, don't repeat them. Because you see, what we get then is that big picture of everybody's issues rather than the same issue over and over again. Is that okay? Does that make sense? Because that way we grow the picture. And then we'll do the second question and then the third question. Now, I know that there are a couple of people who are keen to let us know some of their issues at the other end of the meeting. I'm more than happy to, I've said to people that I don't want you to leave tonight thinking that you haven't had a chance to let us know what those issues are. There are also some people I know who have brought along materials that form submissions. Let's make sure that you leave those with us before the night's over, along with a cover sheet for submissions, and we'll have spare cover sheets for you to take at the other end of the night. Okay, so let's see how we go. There are a couple of people who are shy about using the microphone, and I'm going to say thank you to them to start with, because one of the most generous things that you can do for a community is to actually speak out. So I know that you'll be patient when you hear some of these issues come forward. So I'm going to start with Robert. We'll get this out of the way for Robert. So my question is, what worked well? So what worked well in the lead up to the fires, during, and maybe just the other side of it? So let's see what you tell us and put us in the picture. So, Robert, what did your table have to say worked well?
Okay, so we think that the community meetings were well organised through social media. That worked well, and the respite centre was a good idea.
Yes. Anything else?
Yeah, heaps.
Okay, that worked well. So we're just on that question of what worked well.
It was a good idea.
What was?
The respite centre.
Okay, yep.
What else worked well? The effort in putting the fire out worked well, and now it's somebody else's turn.
Okay. So if you've got those issues on your list, assume that we've got them, so that we don't need to hear them again. And I'll try to get around fairly quickly. We've got a lot of people in the room. Who's the spokesperson at this table? What worked well? What did your table say worked well? If you could stand, and we'll just capture that information.
Okay,
Thank you. What worked well?
What worked well, we liked, was the ABC radio, kept us up to date. The other radio stations didn't. We felt as though we were just dickheads. Okay. Right? It was nice that the police during it were coming around every 15 minutes, which made us feel better and safer in that sense. We weren't exactly as happy with the EPA not measuring from the start.
Is that still what worked well, or
No,
we're now getting into the next? Or it's
that,
on the edge.
Okay, but it's sort of on the edge. But yeah, mainly the information, to get the information to us so that we know what was going on.
Okay, thank you. So you see what we're doing? We're collecting different issues as we go along. Who's our spokesperson at this table? Yeah. If you wouldn't mind standing so that we can get this recorded, really important. Thank you.
We thought the emergency warnings that came out on the phones worked well.
These were text messages?
Yeah, the text messages.
Okay.
Some people obviously didn't. And also, I had a daughter at a school, a son at a kinder, and a daughter at a creche in the local area that were all relocated. Oh. And we thought the effort from Latrobe City in that relocation was amazing.
Okay.
And also at Sacred Heart Primary School, the school and the staff, it was sensational effort as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, any new issues at this table? Who's our spokesperson here? Thank you. Would you mind standing and so that we can capture this for the room? Thank you.
The previous speakers have pretty well covered all of our points.
Anything new?
For one, the arsonist had a good time.
Oh dear. At this table, who's our spokesperson? I think I know who that is. Barb, if you would mind standing, and we'll capture that as well.
Good evening, everybody.
What hadn't we heard yet?
We thought that we had lots of help came from the many agencies, which was greatly appreciated, interstate and international.
Do you actually name some of those agencies?
The CFA, the MFB, etc., the Red Cross. There was lots of them. The CFA that were on site at Hearns Oak made it a lot easier, I think, to attack our fire when it happened. We thought the Fire Ready app was very good. It was a new addition, and I thought that worked quite well. It was something that we hadn't heard about before. Well, I hadn't anyway. The helicopter that was water bombing the houses was quite essential. I think a lot of houses would have been lost that day, that very first day. It just was a constant, continuous effort. The supportive teams, like feeding the crews, worked really well. The community volunteers in the first and second weeks that managed the catering, etc. After 2 weeks, they were exhausted, which is why the DPI was called in. Eventually got the EPA and the other services in, and the evacuation, which has already been covered. So,
okay, thank you very much. Pat, are you the spokesperson at this table? Would you mind standing and just tell us anything that you haven't already heard?
In the lead up to the fire, we thought that it was good weather and good luck. Nobody had anticipated there was going to be anything like this. And the other is, in the specific fire period, The SMSs worked well, and the ABC eventually.
Okay. Thank you. See what we're doing? We're growing this picture as we get around the room. Who's our spokesperson over here? Thank you. What worked well?
Fire services response and the volunteers we thought were fantastic. Pity they didn't have any leadership.
Okay, thank you. Our spokesperson here? Anything else that you haven't already heard? Have we covered everything that was at your table? We've heard about volunteers. Is that okay? I'll pick up any others as we go at the other end of it. So just spokespeople for the time being. What worked well? What did your table have to say about that?
The relocation grants for those that needed it was a good thing. Also, the assessment centre set up in the ambulance station at Mid Valley was a positive. Yep. And the setting up with the CFA with their booths around, giving the community the information that was required as needed, which was a lot more helpful than what you're getting in the press.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Was it a comment about the grants were good for those who received it or those who needed it? Well, because there's a big difference.
Can we just collect these issues and we'll come over to you at the end. So let's collect the issue. Who's our spokesperson at this table? Was there anything that we haven't already heard? Anything else on your list?
I don't think so. I think we listened to most of the other comments. 4 of the people on this table live down in Willis Street and Langford Street, which is very close to the freeway on the opposite side from the open cut. The fire trucks arrived there in amazingly short time when the fire come across the freeway. And we were told fairly quickly to pack up and clear out. Unfortunately, we didn't have a fire plan, right? So because of the unexpectedness of it, we just had to throw some things together and go. Putting the fire out, well, we looked at what the CFA were doing. The police were coming around on patrols every 4 hours. The EPA were doing readings all the time. They kept us awake some nights because they were there every 4 hours during the night, but that was good because they were doing their job, and congratulations to all of them.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Now, what haven't we still heard? Brooke? Just one more thing. Do you mind standing, Brooke, so that we can capture that at the other end?
Pretty much we've covered everything, but we just said that free transport for people to travel to Melbourne and get a break from Morwell was good, especially for people with children, to get a break, go to the zoo, or we thought that was good, especially for kids that had been relocated from their schools as well. So. Okay,
terrific. Now, anything else that we haven't yet heard about that worked well?
Yeah, thank you.
Would you mind standing, please?
Yeah, sure. What we saying worked well was the SEC management of the fires after the 77 fires, the safety systems that they had in place, the maintenance, and also the dedicated fire services they had, and also Craig Lapsley's getting the info out. That was fantastic as well.
Okay, now, was there anyone who still wanted to add to that list of what worked well? Sue, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
I'm from the NR, and they had arson fires along our street, and I thought it was amazing. And at 10:30 in the morning, I saw this huge plume. I thought I was going to die, and they had it out within an hour. And it was really good. It was a really good effort on their part.
Okay. Thank you. Now, have we missed anyone else who would like to add to this list of what worked well? I'll come down here, and I'll come back to the front of the room. What else worked well?
Not really what else worked well, but
that's what I'm collecting at the moment. So anything else?
My concern is the question. What worked well to the lead up to the fire, not during or after?
Oh, well, I'm happy to take anything about that worked well in your entire range of experiences. So was there anything else that you'd like to add to that?
Pretty well all of what they've covered.
What people have covered.
Plus the police, an education department.
Tell us about the education department. What worked well
removing
there?
the kids out of this area. Yep, taking them elsewhere.
Okay.
And not charging
within the first week.
And not charging the parents for the bus. Okay, so that was a free service. Okay, so let's just pick up those last couple of things of issues or themes that might have worked well.
How the community looked after itself and how they looked after each other, and how they opened up the doors to for everyone, and people were offering houses in Lakes Entrance and are offering other things for the community. And when you talk about the police, the roadblocks, how quickly they were set up, there could have been a lot of more. Yeah, there could have been people have died or whatever, and they looked after us like that.
Thank you. That's a really interesting point. Was there still a hand that went up over here? What else worked well, did you think, Margaret? Would you mind standing, Margaret, so that people at the back can...
I can remember after we'd been advised and some people had been given some money to help them to leave town, that they brought in extra police to police around the area to keep our empty places safe. And I can tell you, they were there. Those police were around regular. That was one thing that worked.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Have I missed anybody who wants to still tell us something about their experience, about anything that worked well during that period? Okay, let's. I might perhaps just start at the front now and work my way backwards. I want to pick up issues, themes that didn't work quite so well or that didn't meet your expectations. Brooke, are you able to start us off? So we're on question 2 now. Okay, so we're just trying to grow the list.
Look, probably for all the groups, this is the question that everybody's got lots of points, so I'll just start. During the fires, I was 38 weeks pregnant. I live in Tarwin Street with a 2-year-old, and I own a business in Driffield Road which had to be closed and relocated. So I'm pretty aware of some of the pressures people felt at the time. Our table has suggested that there was no basic emergency plan when everything happened. So between all the groups, we were given quite conflicting information. One of the things that I said to the group was, I run a dance school, so obviously physical activity in challenging air conditions isn't recommended. I was given no guidance as to whether my business could run or not. The EPA said, yes, run your dance classes, keep going, but obviously parents were all saying, well, I'm not bringing my child to dance. So I was very conflicted as to where my liability lied with having children dancing in those conditions. But because I'm not a government department like the schools, no one was giving information to tell us what to do. So that was really challenging for us. Another on the table we've been speaking, we've got someone from the deaf community, and there was limited information given to them. Obviously, for the elderly, Facebook and things like that were quite informative for people that are able to access those things. But if nobody's knocking on your door to tell you what to do, then for some people they had no idea what to do. Also non-English speaking backgrounds. I'm also a qualified school teacher, and there are a lot of non-English speaking children at the schools that I deal with, so obviously parents would have been limited there as well. We also had the moving and relocating of residents was, look, I was relocated, but we'd all been in our homes for quite a significant amount of time before we were relocated, and that's what the major concern is, that we would had kids dancing in that air. I had a 2-year-old in that air at home. I was 38 weeks pregnant at home in that air for a good 2 weeks before we were told we had to relocate. So I think everyone has an issue there to say, well, you know, why did it take so long for us to be told we shouldn't be breathing in this air, we shouldn't have, you know, when we could all see that there was something quite wrong with the ash and smoke going around. Okay. The lack of communication, obviously, you know, we were given such conflicting information, and that could also be something bad from social media as well, because there was so much negativity and miscalculated information put on those things, and for people you don't know what to believe and what to believe. Relocation, if the support for relocation if you didn't have a healthcare card, and that's a huge thing for a lot of people. For myself to go into, you know, I'm not someone registered with Centrelink, but to go in and say I have to go out because I'm 38 weeks pregnant with a 2-year-old, to convince those people that you should, you know, be able to get that sort of funding was very, very challenging, to the point where I was crying personally in the office to the lady. So I think something needed to be done about that. The clean-up is another issue for people, same thing. I don't know if anyone is like myself and some of the people on the table, but paying, within the $2,000 to have people come and clean up your homes. And then, insurance companies don't cover it. So for myself, if the fire's not 10 metres within your house, it's not covered. So people are saying, who is entitled to the clean-up and why hasn't there been a process where more people are entitled to just having the clean-up? And if you are entitled, like Margaret was here, what are you entitled to? A quick dust of your light fittings and a quick vacuum, is that all you're entitled to? Because that's really not going to clear out what damage has been done. I think I've nearly covered all our points. Someone else can probably have a go.
So if you've already, if Brooke has already picked up the issues at your table, again, let's just add to the list rather than repeat them, if that's okay. Okay. Anything else that we haven't already heard from Brooke's list?
Okay. Thank you. We had the removal of the water supply and the sprinkler system in the mine. Didn't work too well. There was no backfilling or very little backfilling. SMS, great for those who got it, but it didn't cover everyone. Some people didn't get it. The CFA was not trained to fight the coal mine fire. We had a major fire in 2006 in the mine. Still, the CFA weren't trained to fight that fire. And also evident by 21 of their people admitted to hospital with the carbon monoxide poisoning. The evacuation of most under threat. The imaginary line that was created. The community felt that it was left in the dark a little bit. The conflicting information I know that I went to, the doctor spoke, it was great. I went to another expert on it, said it was really bad. One of the major ones was the lack of presence from GDF Sewers. They actually own the asset. The medical bills, they haven't been paid. You're sent off to hospital for whatever reason. Who picks up the bills? The overall health information parcel was probably a 4 out of 10. What affects ongoing, and also the conflicting information, I covered that. The other area, the politicians, the local government, they just didn't respond fast enough. The state government didn't respond fast enough, and no federal assistance. The EPA, lack of info initially, and not aware of community meetings, some people. So, thank you.
We've got two very comprehensive lists. Let's keep growing the information around the table. Anything that you'd like to add to this? And I might ask you if you wouldn't mind standing. So, we're still on this question of what didn't work quite so well.
Okay. George McKesser. We were a bit concerned about the clearance around the perimeter of the open cut with regard to tree plantations too close. And also another consideration was all the roadside barriers, the wire roadside barriers Vic Roads have been putting up. Did they hinder the firefighting along the freeway from Hearns Oak down into Morwell? The lack of mine fire knowledge for the people that were responding to the fire in the mine. We heard that some information had to come from overseas, from New Zealand, etc. The local people just didn't have that knowledge, and why we'd like to know.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else that we haven't already heard? Thanks, James.
Thank you. Other than a lot of the points that we have that have been covered, one of ours that we had here was the giving out of money with no accountability.
What does that mean, James? Can you just explain what? The
accountability is what there was a hardship allowance of $500. Yes. You weren't told how you had to use it. Okay. There was a relocation allowance for those that were on the right side of the track, but that was to assist in the relocation away from the fumes. But we didn't get the fumes on the other side of the railway line. So but other than that, yeah. Other than that, there was a $500 grant for a hardship allowance, but seeing people driving in and out of bottle shops and things like that, on the day that the money was picked up, is not really my idea. Is if you were going to get a grant to do something, hop on a bus.
So the point is around accountability of that. Okay.
Yes, that there should have been something on that card to say that it can't be spent at Liquorland and things like that.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else on your list there, James?
the lack of understanding on the part of the organisation distributing the money. That's a lot. Then 3 points are to do with the money. Sorry.
Just anything that we haven't already heard.
The mine owners not being held accountable, which has been covered. The health information that has been given out to people about the toxicity.
Okay, I think we've heard that in different ways, but yeah, we've...
Yeah.
Anything else, James?
Yeah, no, that's about covered.
All right,
Thank you.
We've got what your table had to say. What about over here, Laurel? Anything new that we haven't already heard about?
Yeah, there are lots of wonderful people going around volunteering. You know, we had the Red Cross and so forth. And when I got to the respite centre in Maui, and I only knew about it because my brother-in-law was allocated there. He's a priest. And I didn't know about the respite centre. And
is that something about information and how you get that?
Yeah, and we didn't start getting the little flyers in our letter boxes until weeks down the track, all beautifully printed, I might add, and probably costing a fortune. But they're obviously sitting in somebody's office. Anyway, and all those people were sitting there, and some days I was the only person there. And when I went around to my neighbours, they didn't know about it.
So this was a gap in, I'm using my language now, but it was a gap in information and communication.
Definitely. They even had beds set up there for us so we could go and sleep, and I didn't find out until after the beds had been removed because nobody was coming to use them.
Yeah, okay.
And also, the numbers that we were given for different things, the people didn't know what we were talking about. When I first got the emergency message about the evacuation...
And how did you get that?
On my text.
Yeah, on phone, okay.
Yeah, and I went around to my neighbours, nobody knew anything about it. And so I rang the council, and the council didn't know anything about it.
This was the point some people have made about some people got the message, but not everybody.
Yeah,
so,
and it was about half an hour later they rang me back to tell me what was going on. So I said to my neighbours, well, because I'm waiting for army trucks, buses, trade trucks, anything to roll up to take us out. A lot of old people, some of them in mobile wheelchairs.
Information, communication.
Yes,
yep.
and I walked up to the car park, nobody there, and we can't see 5 feet in front of us. People didn't know how to help us over the numbers that we were allocated to ring up. When I asked,
phone numbers that you
and lack of medical support. I was told to go straight to the hospital or the doctor because I was on the verge of a heart attack or stroke. My blood pressure had shot through the roof, and I've never had high blood pressure before in my life, but I had continual blood noses and violent headaches, and I was passing out.
So the health medical issues.
Yeah,
all right.
and it was 3 days before I could get in to see a doctor.
Okay. Anything else at this table?
Yeah, the EPA didn't put any of their equipment into Mid-Valley until the fire and the problems were well underway. But apparently where Mid-Valley is, because of the hills at the back of us, there's a depression that comes in and holds that air in there.
Okay.
So most of the advice for us was word of mouth. And I think I've covered everything. Oh, we said lack of the firefighting infrastructure for coal fires, specifically for coal fires.
So a few people have touched on that.
And protection for us.
Okay, now... Okay, and I think there's a few people have kind of come towards us with that. So, and anything else that we haven't yet heard from this table, or have we covered all of your issues?
No, I've probably got some similar ones.
Do you want to take this microphone and just, would you mind standing? And we'll just
I'm the same from a few other people.
So just pick up the things we haven't already heard.
Okay, right, well, I did get a text message, but it was the first, I got a text message to say on the Sunday that the toxic get inside. I received one in the evening to say it's all fine, open your windows, doors.
Okay.
And out of that whole time, that was the only message I received. So I'm also someone that doesn't have a smartphone or an internet. I live in a neighbourhood which is filled with elderly residents, and not one of us had really any access to communication, to information. So I think that also
communication and information's come to
also
us a few
on an
times,
estate emergency. This isn't just something that affected 2 or 10 or 100 people. This affected everyone in Morwell and up to 75,000 plus of Latrobe Valley. So the lack of importance on national mainstream media had this affected Melbourne's electricity. I'm sure we would have non-stop heard about it. Also, I also say Tony Abbott, if this had been Julia Gillard, I'm sure we would have had her head on a plate within the first 2 weeks, as I said.
All right, let's...
previous.
Any other issues?
Well, you know, it was a state emergency and crisis for those that were living here under it every single day
and I take
beyond.
that point. It's a very serious
so
point.
The lack of communication or truth and the misleading information, and even the way that the information was given in the paper or in the resources were all confusing or turned upside down so that it makes it acceptable for us to accept, not the real information and clearly giving truth. It was all very confusing, and it still is now.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to go to spokespeople, pick these up, and then I'll come back and still open it up if there's anything else. What did your table have to say, Pat? Anything that we haven't already heard?
Yes, fire prevention outside the open cut. There was no fuel reduction, and if any of you have taken have had the opportunity to drive round to the north of Morwell, you'd be horrified. Morwell was almost wiped out, and when the fire ended at Hearns Oak, if it had gone a bit further, Newbury would have been wiped out if it wasn't for the fireys. Now, we used to have fire breaks. We don't seem to have them now. We have pine plantations. And I've got the report of the Stretton inquiry.
Oh, yes.
Exactly 70 years ago.
Yes.
And the same thing. The fire came from outside. And, and also there were lack of precautions within the open cut.
Thank you.
So it's history repeating itself.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Barb, anything that we haven't already heard?
Just a couple.
I'll come back and pick up on those things.
We felt that there was discrimination of people as to who got the relocation funding and who didn't. Created a lot more problems like drug and alcohol abuse. Disabled people without HCC couldn't get access. Evacuation, we just said people had nowhere to go. I think you did cover that off, didn't you?
Yeah.
People had to use their own leave allocations and sick leave as they couldn't attend work if they did happen to get themselves away from the area. We didn't think that that was fair. The invisible wall we've spoken about. The MMFB staff skiting about getting paid whilst the CFA volunteers didn't, and they did it really hard. Should have been declared a state of emergency. I think that's what
I think that's the point that we're making there.
Rehabilitation of the mine should have been done. The sprinkler system, fire services should have been in place, and we just want to know who is responsible for checking of this, the audit. How can this happen? We want to know who's supposed to be checking off those boxes, that this is done and that's done, and I'm just gobsmacked.
So who's responsible for that?
Who is responsible? Is it the government or is it that G2S sewers people? I don't know.
Anything else on your list? Have we got that? Okay, now let's pick up on the last couple of tables. Anything that we haven't yet heard, and then I'll just come back and pick up any other issues that we haven't picked up on.
Yeah,
Darryl, what else?
All of the ones are pretty well covered on ours, plus declare of a disaster area.
Yep.
One thing that we sort of mentioned was the amount of government workers that were actually sent home and still got paid for it, but the people that had to stay on their jobs, didn't have the opportunity to go home and check on their own properties and so forth. And the other thing was declaring a disaster area.
Yes, so a couple of tables have said that. Okay.
Major impact on the future of the township of Morwell.
We'll come to that one in the last question.
All right.
Is that all right?
Yep. There was one I've missed.
One other?
I've got to find it. The government regulatory body and why they don't... whether GDF sewers would be found negligent, and whether the government in association would be found negligent as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, what haven't we heard yet? Fiona?
We just talked specifically around the health stuff that respirators weren't available for the elderly people. It took 3 weeks for them to have respirators available to them in Morwell South.
Okay.
And just one of the other things we thought was a lack of compassion and empathy shown particularly from the face of the Department of Health. I think, unfortunately, they picked the wrong person to put out there to a community that was experiencing trauma. So if they can learn anything from it, maybe pick someone with some skills next time to be communicating.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you. I'm going to come to you last, Robert. Okay. Anything else that we haven't yet heard? And I'll come back to you folks in a moment.
Yeah, we had concerns about the late evacuation of the elderly in some of the hospitals, that they haven't had it in plan. Secondly, we want to know why they're doing the footpaths, where is all this water going? And two, in Wallace Street, I live in Wallace Street, the grass was over my head. We went to the council, we went to Vic Roads, we went to Russell North, and in the end, they came, they mowed it and left it.
Mm.
So what good was that? Okay. It's neither your arse nor your elbow. It needed to be cleaned up and out the road. Right?
Okay.
And also, we want to know why down in Driffield Road there was lots of empty wood and garbage around there. It wasn't cleaned up. That could have gone up. The other thing we want to know too, why is it the poor little kids with the expresses had to deliver them, but the posties didn't have to come? Yeah, we don't know what effect it's going to have on the kids, right?
Okay. Thank you. Okay. What haven't we heard that's still on your list? I'll come back then in a moment.
Okay, infrastructure was prioritised over the health of Latrobe Valley residents and workers.
Yes. Is that it? Yeah. Okay. So what I'll do now is I'll come to the front of the room and I'll just quickly pick up on anything that we've missed that you want to add to the list on this second question. Have we missed anything?
What about the mental health of people that have got a disability? What's affecting them? And the children?
Okay.
All right, because my daughter's autistic, has grand mal seizures, and she had a hell of a lot when that was on.
So is that an issue about support or what? Psychological counselling. Okay.
What can you tell them? We couldn't tell them anything.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Just anyone else that's still going to want to contribute to this quickly? Thanks, Greg.
My question is, I'd just like to know where the government got their information because they felt the slow response was related to them being told it was going to be a quick fix. Now, I think anybody that's worked in the power industry around here knows that you don't put a coal fire out with a garden hose. They've got to be fought a different way, and I'd like to know where they got their advice from. And as I said, that's the reason it took them so long to act and sort of help us out.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. Just quickly here, one more, Laurel.
We didn't get any coverage about it until I rang up the press. I rang up the TV stations and the radio stations and said, this is very serious and why aren't you covering it? And then we had a few helicopters come down and a few voices, but it was mediocre reporting at the very beginning. It wasn't until it was almost over that they got any serious reporting.
Thank you.
That was at the
Thanks.
state of legal action when they actually started doing something.
Okay, let's. We'll just make sure that we give everybody a go. Sue, anything else to add to that list?
I told Russell North on at least 3 different occasions on Facebook, and he responded with, I told him that we should declare this a state of emergency. When is that going to happen? On all of his responses responded how wonderful the volunteer people are doing. Nothing about the state. My other point was that on that morning of the fire, a video came out several days later on Facebook of a GoPro camera on the side of a Leongatha pump truck going through our fire to the left, fire to the right. Did nothing to our fire, was going to the APM. It said right on the Leongatha's website, Facebook website, and they have since removed this, but they've left all the conversation about it, but they won't allow us to see it now because it's too incriminating for them.
Thank you. Okay. Another one over here.
Yeah, well, this might not seem like a big issue, but veterinary issues, like people with cats and dogs and other animals. I mean,
yes, that's come up
a lot of people who had pets who had to relocate, who couldn't take them. If there was somewhere that they could be taken, I know that the animals also got sick. I mean, we've got to not forget that they do breathe this stuff in as well. So,
thank you. Anyone else?
Excuse my ignorance around this matter as well, but when the fire actually broke out on the Sunday, and then I was listening to ABC radio trying to find out, And on the Tuesday, they were saying how it's important. It's looking like it's heading towards basically to Hazelwood. So they had this whole week before it actually caught fire in Hazelwood, when around the corner from my house we had at least 60 to 80 CFA fire engines, crews from all around Victoria, Australia and whatnot. So I want to know what they were actually doing, sorry again to be ignorant, but in that whole week prior to it actually catching on fire in the disused part of the mine. So yeah, why did it take so long in the first place?
Why did it take so
and
long?
Then why so long for, we were left, in that first 2 weeks all the major damage was done. It still went for 6 weeks, but we should have had evacuation and things planned. So
Okay,
the emergency
so I'm just
plan.
going to collect the last couple on the way through, and then we'll get to the last question, and then open it up if there's anyone who's still missed the opportunity. Can I come back to you a little later? I won't forget, I promise. Thank you. Anything that we've missed?
Yeah, just one quick one. I think there was a lack of the use of Morwell facilities. Virtually the council did nothing about opening up any more facilities for more people to go to. So it was go to Moe, go to Traralgon, but we're told it's safe to live in our house, but we can't use, say, Kernot Hall or other more facilities.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to start at this table, and we might now get to that last question about future. Now, from here on in, now what? What's got to happen? What's got to change?
Thank you. Yeah, all right. Regulators need to regulate. The unused parts of the mine need to be backfilled.
Just one moment, because Lana's trying to take down all of these issues. So.
Regulators need to regulate.
Yep.
Accountability, monitoring.
Okay.
The unused parts of the mine, they need to be backfilled, clayed over, whatever. The vegetation, the trees within the parameter, 5 miles from a mine parameter, they should be removed. We should err on the side of caution if it happens again. So, we need to make sure that the health of all the people is the number one priority. GDF sewers and other mine owners, they need to take responsibility, be socially responsible, and they need to pay up. Establish the health register for people, and also I think that every resident should demand a letter that they've been exposed to this. And that was a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. So I'm very conscious of time, and I know that we did promise to get away by 9 o'clock, and I know that we're pushing that. So I'm going to try to move through fairly quickly. So again, if you've already heard the issue come up, please don't mention it, because we're collecting them. Lana's getting them, and we're getting them recorded. So we'll just keep growing the list. Okay, anything else now?
We think that an analysis should be done on the long-term effects of Morwell financially. So for people for house prices and things like that, because obviously they will be affected by this, and for businesses long-term, how their profits will be affected, because it's been an enormous financial impact for the whole town. And if there is another disaster like this, we need to clearly know who actually is responsible and accountable.
Yes, I've picked that up as we've gone along. Okay. Over here, James, can you tell us, what about the future?
The people with the expertise need to be committed sooner than later.
Yeah.
Someone said here, I've not to the 1977 Royal Commission onto the coal fire with the sprinkler systems. Why was it removed? That was the thing.
Okay.
More government assistance for people to leave.
Mm-hmm.
The foam that actually put the fire out needs to be located at the mine and not interstate or wherever it was. The more open cuts, not in Tasmania or whatever.
Yes.
I think it's first and foremost is don't divide the bloody town. We live in Morwell, right? You know, I've been here since I'm 18-year-old, and and I like it.
Yes.
Streamlining the assistance with no discrimination. That's all right. The clean-up package was a joke, you know what I mean? I'm very remiss, but I never went down and got me bucket and all that sort of thing. So if anyone's got a spare one, loan it to me, will you please? Thank you. And also the government needs to be upfront about who is going to pay for this. You know, no duck shoving, which they're doing at the moment. It's a war of words. No one's accepting responsibility for what's happening. Therefore, we're left as residents to pay out of our pocket, you know, which for something that we had no control over, we shouldn't be doing this.
Thank you. And thank you for your good nature too. Thank you. Okay. Anything at this table? Into the future directions, advice, suggestions, ideas?
Yeah, probably move and live somewhere else. We touched on rehabilitation of old areas of the mine, education to the public regarding the mine fire should come out earlier, communication be better structured. And the last one is, when do the results of all this communication and information gathering come back to us?
Do you mean tonight's or? No. Okay. Well, I'll tell you that straight away. That's a good question. You'll see that we are doing our best to collect as much information as we possibly can tonight. That'll go on the website within the next couple of days. By the end of April. Okay. So and you'll see exactly what's been said in each of these sessions and right across each of the regions. We'll do that by summary, so you can see that. I'm sorry. So the information, Lana? So it'll be posted out to everybody that's attended, which is why you filled in those registration sheets at the beginning. So let me go around. I'm just going to keep collecting information around this question. So.
But it'd be great to send it out like a community newsletter that all of Morwell residents, regardless whether they've got a computer, whether they turned up here tonight because they even knew about it tonight or last week, that is important.
And look, what we're well aware of is that there might have been a whole lot of people who might have missed these sessions because for some reason they couldn't come here. So we'll be very conscious of not ignoring their needs. We'll find the best way of trying to do that. Now, Laurel, we're back with you again. What about the future? Is that microphone working? Can we just check, is that microphone working?
Turned in. Oh, there it is. Look, I grew up in this area and I've come back and I've been appalled at the way the township's gone downhill, and it didn't need this fire. I've been living in Queensland for 14 years, and one of the things that they had going whenever a cyclone was coming up was not this little stupid ticker tape message, evacuate Driffield Road. A fire is approaching towards them. So they had sirens blaring on radios and TVs. You knew that background noise was important. And then there was big flashing signs on the TV, so nobody could mistake it. But most of us couldn't read the little ticker tape messages. When I went around to my neighbours, and a lot of them were from other states, they'd come to join their families in their old age, and none of them knew where Driffield Road was. No, I didn't know, even though I grew up in this area, I didn't know where Driffield Road was, and so I didn't think it applied to me. And then when I asked for respite for my dogs, they offered me the pound in Driffield Road, which all the animals had been evacuated from for safety. And when I said to the man, but you've already evacuated all the animals, he said, if it's good enough for the staff to work there, it's good enough for your dogs. Well, my dogs are my babies.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to come back and I'm particularly keen because in this last little while, I'm just going to try to pick up on people who haven't had a chance. So, into the future, what did your table have to say about future directions, themes, issues?
We need an independent authority to look after the fire prevention in this area, because nobody in our wildest dreams imagined that we'd be buying and selling open cuts and power stations as if they were products in supermarkets. And so as they're on-sold, there's less and less observance of whatever regulations there are. Yeah. And this is where we got to this stage. So we need an independent authority that will have all the equipment. I'm told that when the Morwell Fire Brigade goes to fight fires in the Hazelwood Power Station, they've got to actually wash down the dust because they've got rid of cleaners because it's too expensive. So, and they're sick and fed fed up of having to do maintenance work that everybody, that the authorities themselves should be doing. So I think we need an independent authority to make sure that that's done and to report regularly to the Parliament that it has been done.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Into the future, what should change?
Training of the firefighters to know how to manage and fight the fire. Maybe we already did that, sorry. Long-term health study, we cover that?
No.
Release the EPA data that's been collected and better EPA monitoring ongoing. We'd like to see the reinstatement of people's leave and sick leave used during the fire. Tell the community what the evacuation plan is and where we all need to go as we're surrounded by power stations. Clean the roof cavities of the whole town. Sheds, okay, Dale. We need some compensation for our devalued house prices. The insurance companies are to be consistent and pay up or help with the cleaning. Move the freeway away from the cut. Clean the churches and the not-for-profit buildings now. We need to monitor the land slippage from Commercial Road to the cut. I know my property's moved, my front porch has moved away from in the front of our house, so if they're talking about that there's been no land slippage, I'm not sure where it's coming from because I'm pretty close to it. Yeah. Has the fire gone under the freeway as the ash is unstable? Reimburse all town members for cleaning costs, electricity, clothes dryers, water for cleaning, and to have proper effective masks that actually filter out the dust and that are not out of date.
Thank you. Anything that we haven't yet picked up on with your views about the future?
We just had two quick ones, and it was just sort of backing up what Pat was saying, but making sure that there's penalties for breaches, like huge penalties for breaches of regulations as well, so that there is consequences. And just specifically around, people have talked about the relocation payments. Just, I think it's important that if a government department is classifying people to be at risk and urging them to relocate, then they shouldn't expect them to pay for it.
Thank you. Darryl, have you got anything else from your table that you haven't already heard?
No, pretty well covered.
Pretty much covered? No? Go on. Thanks.
The washout of some of the houses in Morwell. Got to remember that a lot of the houses in Morwell have asbestos in them. So doing washouts of ceilings and so forth, you may be creating more problems.
Thank you. Now, Robert, anything else that we haven't yet picked up on that your table had to tell us?
Okay, we think there should be annual reviews for fire and risk management plans. We also think that GTF sewers, the government leaders should show some honesty and integrity.
Anything that we've missed?
We feel that all the school children should have been evacuated, all of them, because even up at St Vincent's, this lady was saying she was next door and they got something. Yeah, so it should be.
Okay, but you're saying all okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to just come back to the front of the room. I'm very conscious of time. Now, if we did say 9 o'clock, and if there are some people who need to make a move, I completely understand that. But I'd also like to just make sure that if there are a couple of people who've still come along tonight and they haven't had a chance to get their issue up on the list, or there's still a theme that we've missed, that we'll pick it up. And particularly for people who haven't yet had a go, if I can do that on the way through, we'll just pick that up. So let me come through to the front of the room. No, that's fine. I'm happy to pick that up. So what else?
I think the mine remediation has to be increased. $15 million isn't good enough.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, just over here.
Since the mine fire has been handed back over to the mine owners, we haven't had any information about what's going on with the fire. Not been told whether it's still going out. I know it's still going, but yeah, we haven't been given any information.
Okay. Okay. And thanks everybody for being quite brief around these issues that we're picking up. Please.
I hope that the inquiry will look at the 800 forms that the people from Morwell filled out the day that we had our protest meeting here. They're being handed over to the inquiry tomorrow, the originals. 800 people have listed their health issues since the fire, and this was in the middle of the time at the beginning of March, and their financial implications. So we hope those 800 are read. The people in Morwell filled them out, hoping that something would happen.
Thank you. I'm just going to... Yeah? Okay, I'm going to go to Wendy first because I just want to give people a chance who haven't yet had an opportunity.
I just hope that the points that are made at the inquiry need to be followed through so that we don't just have an inquiry that nothing actually happens. I don't know whether Dandenong learnt it all, but about 3 weeks or 4 weeks after our coal fire, they did have a fire in Dandenong. They evacuated the community immediately for 6 hours. You know, why wasn't it done in Morwell? Just a point that I have picked up, and I have confirmed it myself as well. GDF sewers make $1 million every 6 minutes from Hazelwood Mine. All right? They've got a lawsuit in Italy at the moment happening on the same thing that's happened to us.
Thank you. Barb? Yep.
I'll be really quick. Just wondered, all the information that's been collected at the respite centre, like where the ambulance guys were, is all of that information going to be collated into this report as well? Like all the people that went there, got tested, told them of their symptoms, like for those people that haven't been to that meeting that you were talking about, Nerissa, that filled in those forms. I was just wondering if all that information is going to be presented to
the inquiry. I'm sure will pick up as much data around the different circumstances as it possibly can. Laurel? And I'll come round.
Next time, if God forbid that we ever have a next time, but if they evacuate us, and God help them if they don't, I want them to be responsible about where they send us. I was given 4 names. 3 of the people couldn't help me. And the 4th person, they couldn't wait to have me to come down to enjoy their hospitality. And the lady and her daughter were wonderful, but when I went to get in the car, when we were going out to dinner that night, there were all these funny holes down the side of the car. And then the mother explained to me that the son was in jail for drug dealing, and that was the result of it. And I thought, well, I could have been a victim, a standby victim there, because would they have shot up the mother and the rest of the family?
So I'll take your point. Okay, Phoebe, last go for you. And sorry, I'll come back over here.
Sorry, I want to talk about something which is long-term vision and future vision, because as most of you would be thinking, where do we go from here? What is the long-term effects on our body? What about as our town in general? And if at the end of the day, like you're saying, God forbid anything happen again, is the reality that we just keep letting, hopefully things, accountability starts coming into play for the, for Hazelwood and the government and that associated. But what are the long-term visions for me as a Morwell resident who's grown up here? I needed some positive visions. What is there for me to think of now? And there was nothing really that I could think of any positive future, because house prices have been affected, we've all been exposed, and who's going to want to move, blah, 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 blah. Now, do we rely on this singular economy of a power station for the future, or are we finally going to start moving with the rest of the world to a low-carbon future and start putting things in place, having a bit of a vision of how we can be not as reliant on a single, single economy, a single dominated economy in our area, blah, 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 blah. Can we make changes to new resources, which there is so many great ideas out there and things that you could possibly do. Industry. I heard that the government gave $300 million to GDF last year to help with making changes, updating, blah, 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 blah. Now, let alone countless millions previous years. If that sort of money had gone into new sustainable technologies, new industries for people in Gippsland to give us a hope, to give us a new future, rather than having to rely, because I grew up here I didn't think that we were going to be... I thought this would have been closed down at some point in time, and especially when it's become out of date and when things haven't been repaired, looked after. I didn't think that I was going to be sitting in Latrobe Valley my whole life and we weren't going to be moving towards a cleaner future, new alternatives, new jobs for our community. And there's something that's been... Council actually gave... Transisting Cities, who, for Morwell residents, you may know, in the last couple of months we've had a couple of commercial road festivals, like part of the Transisting Cities, which basically has all these ideas for future vision of Latrobe Valley. If you haven't seen it, it was actually in the paper a couple of years ago, a competition with worldwide entries on how we could transform Latrobe Valley into a cleaner, low-carbon future. And there's plenty of really amazing ideas, new technologies, things that you may not have thought of, but there's obviously so many incredible people out there in the world that have got great ideas for future towns such as Latrobe Valley. So I think it's important to think about a long-term vision and how we can... It's no point in turning it off, but we need access to new technologies to help us transist into a low-carbon future.
Thanks, Phoebe. Over to you. No, it's good. It's good.
Something
No, it's
positive,
good.
a positive vision, not just...
No, it's an important point.
Oh,
Okay, still a couple of people who want to have a go. Please.
I just wanted to reference a current practice that will highlight some of the aspirations already expressed, and that's the monitoring mechanism of the recommendations made by your previous
the Bushfires Royal
operation, the Bushfires Royal Commission, and that's been monitored and reported on by Mr. Comrie. And in regard to the idea that others have identified about having independent authorities to monitor the what goes on from here on out as part of your recommendations, I hope you'll ensure that there is a monitoring mechanism, whether it's necessarily the likes of Mr. Comrie or some other monitoring mechanism needs to be there.
Thank you. Now, just a couple of people still, and then I think we're probably done for the night.
Okay, how you going? I just want to ask the inquiry. Are you going to ask why Rosemary Lester, the Department of Health, allowed the residents of Morwell South to live in a toxic environment that's dangerous to their health? And that's according to the Australian Government Department of the Environment, which is a document that they have. And the particles, the carbon monoxide that we've been dealt with for weeks, the safe standards, the Australian standards, is 9 parts per million over 8 hours, not to exceed 1 day in a year. Well, I tell you, we've exceeded that by many days. Now, all the ash that you know that we've been inundated with, and sometimes in Langford Street and in Morwell South, you couldn't see just 20 metres up the road. Now, that ash contains particles, which is on the EPA website, particles of PM1s, PM10s and PM2.5s. PM2.5s are the particles that get into your lungs, into the air sacs, and can cause a lot of damage. Right. Now, the safe level standard, Australian standard, is 25. I don't know what the graduation is, 25 UGM3. Now, we've exceeded that by 20 times. We've been up to 500 figure, and that's over a period of weeks. So we have had these particles, and another document from the EPA about the particles in the air, specifically saying, this is the EPA on the EPA website, the particles in the air that we've been breathing for weeks, and that Rosemary Lester said, oh, it's okay, there's not going to be any long-term damage. It says, in general, the smaller particles, the greater effect. So small particles can penetrate further into the lungs and cause harm. Particles can aggravate existing lung and heart diseases, leading to increased hospital admissions and sometimes premature death. So why did Rosemary Lester say that it was okay when we have all the evidence here from the Australian standards, And also, we have a material safety data sheet that was given to Rosemary Lester. Now, this is hang on, let me just find it here. This is a safety data sheet, a legal document that states that the fly ash, the ash that's been going in the air, is classified as hazardous according to the criteria of NOHSC, which is the National Occupational Health and Safety Committee of Australia. So with all this information that she's had, it's been a cover-up, and I hope you, the inquirees, are going to do something about it and not just sweep it under the carpet like the EPA and the Department of Health has. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I've been involved with a couple of emergency situations. Now, there's been inquiries into floods and fires before. We're having another one now. Your last question is what should be done differently and in response to if it happens again. We have the information there. There should be someone coming as soon as a trigger point is reached of how many people are affected, that someone who knows all this knowledge comes out and speaks for the residents, comes into the situation area and speaks for the residents. They know that $500 isn't enough for everyone, or that they know all these situations. They can be there and advise the government of the day of what to do for the residents.
Thank you.
I will be quick.
That's fine.
I just hope the government and the companies, the mine companies, have enough courage to look at the Newport Lakes project. It was a quarry. It was a toxic quarry. People made a lot of noise about it. It got covered up. It's a valued asset around Melbourne. If the companies and the government want us to shut up and get on with our lives and leave them alone, cover up that dangerous eyesore, and we'll be happy. They'll be happy. It was a win-win situation. It's doable. It's fixable.
Have I missed anyone? Anyone up here?
Can I just say that
Just quickly.
Just quickly that the people who've been inundated by the ash and have breathed it in, it's not going to be an immediate sickness. This can start in months or in years. But when those particles are in your lungs, which may be in some of us, it can happen. Okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you. And those points have been really well made. I hope that everyone who's come along to contribute tonight has had an opportunity to do that at the tables and in the report back. We'll stay on for a little while if there's something that you think we might have missed. We'd really like to take your notes if you'd like us to have them. We really want you to contribute through the submission process if you're up for that as well. Can I just say before Sonia closes the meeting, as a facilitator, somebody who works with communities all the time, I recognise grace and dignity, and I thank you for bringing it into the room tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sonia.
And I'll endorse that. Thanks on behalf of Bernard Teague, Professor John Catford and myself and the team of the inquiry. We're very grateful for your time, for your openness, for your clarity, and we have a number of points that we've all recorded, so it's been very helpful for us to listen to some of the concerns. So on behalf of us, thank you very much. And please feel free to lodge the submissions if you think that there hasn't been enough coverage or you'd like a particular point. We still have 2 more community consultation sessions, one here tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. at the Bowls Club, tomorrow. And then the second one, Lana, is Terrelgan Performing Arts Centre at 11 a.m. tomorrow. So please pass the word around. And then if you can't attend those sessions, then please encourage others to put the submissions in. So thanks again. Good night.